always want the sunshine, but he knows there must be rain. We always want the laughter and the merriment of cheer, but our hearts will lose their tenderness if we never shed a tear. So whenever we feel that everything's going wrong.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to Inspirations. All praise is due to Allah. We praise Him, we seek His aid, and we ask for His forgiveness. We send peace and blessings on our beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And I bear witness that no one has the right but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, our Creator, who has no partners. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to help us benefit from the great example of our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Dear viewers, welcome to this new episode of Inspirations. And today it's a special episode. We'll talk about some of the current events, some of the important things that we can do. Hopefully we'll be able to learn from the example of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. I really feel every time that we read the life of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam that we can learn from it. And it's not meant only for entertainment. There could be an element of entertainment in reading and learning and listening to the seerah of the Prophet ﷺ, but the real essence and the real wisdom behind that is to be able to equip ourselves with so much benefit, so much wisdom, learn it from the Prophet ﷺ, and be able to deal with today's world in which we live today, with everything, all the challenges, all the difficulties, all the hardships, so that we can really make it to the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We can practice Islam well, and we can be the servants that Allah is pleased with and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is proud of. Last week we talked about some of the things that the ummah is facing today, and I said that we have to build a real long-term strategy in order to change the state of the ummah. We will never be able to change the state of the ummah with fits of anger, an outburst of emotion, frustration. All of these will never change our ummah. You know what's happening today, the issue of burning the Mus'haf, a copy of the Mus'haf, and the attacks on even niqab, preventing the ban of niqab in some countries who claim to be democratic and countries of liberation and freedom. They're going against the very principles they are bragging about. And even some of the attacks that take place from within, like some of those who claim to be Muslims, and they attack the honor of the Prophet ﷺ, they attack the mother of the believers, Aisha, may Allah be pleased with her, the mother of all the believers. These people are the enemies of Islam, even though they claim in some countries that they are fighting the enemies of Islam, that they are making the nuclear weapons or whatever it is in order to defend Islam. These weapons are made to destroy the people of Ahlul Sunnah. These weapons are made to destroy the real Muslims. And don't think that these people who are not upon the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, don't ever think that they are the enemies of the enemies of Islam. Impossible. These people are on the same camp. They are on the same camp. They are on the same camp with the enemies of Islam, and it's only a play, or it's only some kind of a trick they're playing against the Muslims in order to keep us engaged and deluded from reality. There's a book that I would recommend, or there's a writer that I recommend you read his books. He's a very intelligent writer, very keen observer. He knows a lot about the politics of these people. And he put that in a book, and the book is called Treacherous Alliance. The writer is Trita Parsi, and his book is Treacherous Alliance. Try to find it, it's available in the market, and it will tell you so much about the tricks that are taking place in the world today, and how these people who claim to be Muslims, who claim to be defending Islam, who claim to want to liberate Palestine and Jerusalem, and who claim to care for the Muslims, these are the very enemies of Islam. And if they get hold of the Muslims, they would really inflict upon them worse than what other nations are doing to Islam. And you can take Iraq as a very clear point, or very clear example. When you see the people of Ahlul Sunnah, they are taken captive, and the way they are tortured is just crazy. It shows that there are psychological orders. These people have psychological orders. The way they torture people with electric drills, they drill their bodies, and it's beyond description. The atrocities they commit against the people who follow the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to expose them and to give the Muslims victory over them. Recently, some of them are making a lot of attack against the Prophet ﷺ, against the companions of the Prophet, and more specifically against the wife of the Prophet ﷺ, the mother of the believers, Aisha. All of these are happening, taking place in synchrony, and as I said, we've seen that Muslims have fallen into the trap of oversensitivity. People are touching on oversensitivity. It's just like they found the button that pushes us up and down. So the attacks against the Prophet ﷺ, against the person of the Prophet ﷺ in the format of cartoons, and then, as I said, these issues against niqab and the minarets, and then burning the mushaf, and it will keep going. It will not stop at that point. And the reason is, we Muslims, we're not carrying ourselves right. We're not building a long-term strategy. These people, they know that we are caught within the trap of urgency. So we only deal with urgent matters. And when you deal with urgent matters, you are spontaneous and you lack the long-term strategy. So you don't know, you could be harming yourself while thinking you're doing something good. That's the problem of being caught up in this matrix of urgency. So, and these people know this very well. So they can actually set us on fire, and they can calm us down with one word. And that shows actually the weakness of us as Muslims. So my point last time was to build a long-term strategy as Muslims. Now probably you can say, I'm an average Muslim, I'm a normal citizen, I don't have power, I don't have the means to do anything. Now inshallah we'll talk about these. Now there are Muslims who have power. There are Muslims who have the means, the rich Muslims. Some of the Muslims who are in the political arena, they possess and they display some power. Some Muslims are in a position of influence. Are they exercising or are they utilizing these powers that this power that they have? Are they using it for the sake of Allah to build a long-term strategy for Muslims? Now these are things that we have to deal with. So as I said, we have to put an end to our to the reality that we are caught up in this sense of urgency. So only when a massacre takes place, we start to think about the state of the ummah. Only when the mushaf has been attacked, we start to think about the state of the ummah, we get angry. Only when there's an attack on the Prophet ﷺ, we start to feel angry. But what about the underlying patterns? There are some subtle patterns beneath that are leading to these bursts of events. So we shouldn't be superficial and be trapped by these events. We have to realize and understand and detect the underlying causes of these. Once you read them well, you'll be able even to predict what will be happening, what is the next step, because you will start to see consistent patterns. So the problem that we are caught up in this sense of urgency, we are unable to read the consistent and subtle patterns that are running and actually leading the affairs. And this is my point in this episode today, inshallah, that we will try to build. The Prophet ﷺ was never caught up in that sense of urgency. As I said at the beginning, he realized he was weak. The Muslims were weak. They could not defend themselves. So when his companions were tortured, he couldn't do anything to them. He realized. He never resorted to an irresponsible or reckless action against the people of Quraysh, because he realized if he were to do that, that would mean the end of Islam forever. So it's not only about emotion, it's not only about a sense of urgency, because any sense of urgency, if you don't have a long-term plan, first of all, it will be inappropriate, it will be blown out of proportion, it will not be in proportion with the event. So it will be either less or more. And in both cases you will be causing damage. Second thing, even if it seems you're doing something good, if you lose track of your long-term strategy, if your time horizon contracts to become so tiny and only controlled by the events, current events, then you will lose direction and you could be going against your own interest. You could be causing yourself damage. And that's true. That's true in everything in life. So we have to develop a wider time horizon. We understand our time dimension, we extend it right, we get the right focus on it, and we realize what we're dealing with now, and we connect the dots so we can develop a full picture of everything. Then we'll be able to deal with things based on wisdom and correct understanding. The Prophet ﷺ, as I said, was like that. He realized it hurt him so much that his companions were tortured and were killed. Don't think that he wasn't feeling anything about that. Definitely it hurt him so much. But the Prophet ﷺ was focused on a long-term strategy. He realized that we have to pay this price at this stage, but we have to pass that stage. We have to go past it. Now we Muslims are not doing that. We always, as I said, we have bursts of anger and rage, and then after that, when the events calm down, we calm down and we have no concern whatsoever. We have no response. We lose direction. We lose our long strategy plan. And that's it, until another event comes and it sets us on fire, and so on and so forth. That's the state of the Muslims today, the majority of them, sorry. The Prophet ﷺ wasn't like that. As I said, his main focus was on the long-term strategy. He realized he had to do da'wah more, although the people who would join his da'wah were to be tortured, were to join the camp of torture. But he was calling more people to Islam, and he was teaching his companions more and more about Allah, about the reality of this life, about the reality of their existence, about the reality of trials, and the necessity and the inevitability of going through trials, hardships. أَحَسِبَ النَّاسُ أَن يُتْرَكُوا أَن يَقُولُوا آمَنَّا وَهُمْ لَا يُفْتَنُونَ. Do people think that they will be left to say we believe when they have not been tested yet? وَلَقَدْ فَتَنَّا الَّذِينَ مِنْ قَبْلِهِمْ فَلَا يَعْلَمَنَّ اللَّهُ الَّذِينَ صَدَقُوا وَلَا يَعْلَمَنَّ الْكَاذِبِينَ. We have tested the people who came before them. Allah will make clear the people, the true believers, who will put up with the tests, and Allah will make them distinct from the people who are not faithful. So that's the reality of this life. The Prophet ﷺ focused on that. He realized he had to persist in his way, and until it gains momentum, and until this strength builds up, then we will be outrooting the main causes of this illness and this pain and these trials. That's the strategy of the Prophet ﷺ. Why don't we develop a similar one today? Now when the massacres, or when the attacks were in Gaza about a year ago, just more than 1 year ago, we felt bad about that, and everyone was enraged. Then it calmed down. We calmed down as if nothing happened. Those who were, as I said, those who were doing sins, they went back to their sins. Those who listened to music went back to listen to music. Those who spent their time just watching movies and films, and some people just chasing girls and things like that, doing nasty things, they still do the same. They went back to the same thing. So how do you think things will change? We haven't done anything important, anything that affects the long-term direction of affairs. We haven't done anything to change that. So the enemies of Islam are playing with us. They're pulling all our strings, and we're helpless. So this is what we have to understand. So the Prophet ﷺ, as I said, and we have to be cautious, because there are plans, and that's the issue of the other nations. All of them build long-term strategies, and they don't bother so much about publicity. What's been said, you can say whatever you want to say about them. You can spread the words you want to say about them, and you can make any claims. No one cares. At the end, they're executing their plan. They're executing their plan. And only Muslims, mainly, are caught up in the superficial level. But other nations are making long-term strategies. They're executing them. They're making sure everything is going according to the plan. And they're getting somewhere. And believe me, if we don't develop a plan and work according to it, somebody else has a plan for you, and it won't be pleasant. So unless we make our own plan and we execute it, somebody else will make a plan for us, and it will be in the favor and against us. And this is exactly what we are living in today. Because what's happening today, most of it, generally, it can't be perfect, because only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is capable of doing whatever He wants. But generally speaking, what we are living today are the results of plans that were made long time ago. Long time ago. So we have to understand these things. And because lack of planning, lack of a long-term plan is destroying us and is giving our enemies an advantage over us. So everybody is having a plan. So let's be careful, let's build a long-term strategy. Many people say, okay, if we build a long-term strategy, what should we do now? Should we just let the Muslims be killed in different places? Should we just let the Mus'haf be burnt and humiliated and disrespected? I'm not saying that. I'm saying we have to act responsibly, and we have to make our response emanate from our long-term strategy. Now, what will change the state of the ummah? And the example I gave last time, if we were to do that as Muslims, and as I said, it's just a suggestion, and it's just one suggestion, and some other people could have better suggestions, like burning the Mus'haf. Why don't we, if they are going to burn the Mus'haf, and that's a very superficial thing, by the way, it shouldn't really destroy us from inside. It should actually make us feel proud of our Qur'an. It should bring us closer to our Qur'an. But I'm sure, after some time, people will forget about it. Even the people, many people don't read Qur'an among the Muslims. Probably, why don't they read Qur'an? Now these people are burning your Qur'an. This should bring you to realize what you really have. You see that these people don't respect you, even if you imitate them, mimic them, take their example, follow their way of life, and you appease them, please them, you do everything in order to do that, or in order to be friends with them. They don't want you. They don't want you. It's a civilizational struggle for survival. So this is something we have to understand. Now, unless these things cause real changes, substantial, consistent, and sustainable change in you, they will be of no benefit. So why don't we, for example, if you don't read Qur'an at all, if you don't have the habit of reading Qur'an, once you heard about this, the burning of the Qur'an, why don't you make it your daily habit to read at least one page of the Qur'an? That's it. You would be making a real difference. So this would be like a proactive approach, inshallah, to things like that. We have some other points, other things that we will share with you. So inshallah, we'll talk about this after the break. Stay tuned.
Allah knows what's best for us, so why should we complain?
Ask Huda.
If you're still in Mecca or close by to Mecca, then you have to know that you are still in the state of ihram. As long as it is not for sale, then he does not have to pay zakah for it. Forbade praying witr similar to Maghrib prayer. So whoever prays witr 3 rak'ahs and sitting after the second rak'ah as if he's praying Maghrib prayer, this is forbidden, this is haram. Euthanasia is permissible with animals but not with human beings. If an animal is suffering, killing an animal for a legitimate reason is permissible. Both are acceptable, but the majority say that after the ruku' is the place of qunut. But both was reported.
Have a question or concern on your mind? Huda TV decided, based on popular demand, we will be bringing you an additional episode of Ask Huda with Sheikh Azim bin Luqman Al-Hakim live from Jeddah, Kingdom of Saudi Arabia.
Allah knows what's best for us, so why should we complain?
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back to Inspirations. I will remind you that you can always be part of our show, so you can send your emails to our email address, inspirations@huda.tv. Again, our email address is inspirations@huda.tv. You can send any questions, comments you have. I have also to apologize because this episode was supposed to be live, but due to some reasons we had to record it, so it's recorded. I apologize about this. I promised you to make it live, and so that we can hear from you, we can share some of your emails. I thank those who sent emails and suggestions to us. May Allah reward you. Some very beneficial points there. I will try to mention some of them inshallah today. So this episode is recorded. and we apologize again for not having it live. So we said that it's important for us to build a long-term strategy instead of focusing on getting immediate results. You know, this is something that is very common in bringing up children, raising our children. Many times we see a behavior or unacceptable behavior from one of our children, and we want to change it immediately. We want the child to behave himself or herself immediately. So we want, as if we want to have a decisive action that will end this bad behavior for once and forever. But this is totally far from reality, because a behavior is always deeply ingrained in a child or in a person, in a human being. So if you want to change it at one stage or in one process, you will just daydreaming. You won't be able to do that. So instead of focusing on changing the behavior of my child, for example, your child has the habit of nagging. When he or she wants something, they keep nagging. Or what happens, you become nervous, you become upset, and you scream at them, and you might punish them or beat them or smack them and say, you have to stop that forever. You're not doing that anymore. And you think you've dealt with the problem, but you haven't. Because this is a deep problem and it needs a deeper approach. I mean, if it's a deep problem, and if you keep trying to change it and you don't succeed, then be sure that you are working on a level that is much more superficial than the deeper level of the problem itself. So you have to go deeper and deal with it on a deeper level and give it time. When the things get deeper, they always need more time. So if you want to stop that habit, you have to, for example, make a plan, let's say for 5 months. Okay, in 5 months, I want to see my child stopping that habit. What can I do to do this? You start to study the habit of nagging. What makes him nag? What makes her nag? Okay, keep nagging. 1, 2, 3. Where did he get this habit from? Okay, 1, 2, 3. What can I do about this? Can we speak to that child? Can we, reach an agreement? If you stop nagging, for example, you will get this and that reward. Okay, but if you nag, there will be a certain punishment. For example, you will not get what you're asking for. So you have both ways, to get or not to get, and you choose which way. Hold it slowly, and you train them. They will make mistakes because it's a habit. They'll have to come back to it. So you train them over time. That okay, now you started nagging. Remember, if you nag, you won't get that. But if you use a better way, there's a way to express yourself, then you will get it. So you train them. You give them time. So in 5 months, inshallah, if you stick to your plan, in 5 months you'll find your child has done away with the habit of nagging. This is how things work. But if you keep every time trying to sort out the problem with one step or with one action, as I said, once and for all, you'll keep doing that for the rest of your life, and you won't be helping your child overcome this habit, and you won't be building a good relationship with your child. That's exactly the same fault we're dealing with today. We want to end the problems of the Muslim world on the spot. We think one word will change the whole thing. We think one demonstration or one strike will put an end to the suffering of the Muslims. No, it doesn't happen like that. This is not the world we're living in today. By the way, this is not the world in which we live. That's not the world Allah created us and put us in. This world, everything in this world takes time. You need to build a habit. So as Muslims, okay, why don't we put a longer term plan? For example, that the weakness of the ummah. We Muslims are weak. Our enemies are making fun of us. They're taking advantage of us. They're taking advantage of our resources. We're totally dependent on them in terms of industry, manufacturing, even services. Go to any Muslim country and go to the market and pick up any good, any of the goods there, any of the things that you can find in any shop, in any market, and try to find out the percentage of the things that are created or that are manufactured locally. It would be insignificant. We have become a consumer society. Consumer society. So if we can't even make our own food, even a matchbox, we can't even make that, what do we expect to be? So we have to see where our deficiencies are. And why not build a long-term strategy? Let's say 50 years. Say 50 years. Where do we want to see the Muslims in 50 years? Why be hasty? Because if we keep our spontaneous, our hasty attitude, we will never change for hundreds of years. We'll be the same, by the way. We'll be the same. And it's enough, the last 100 years of the history of the Muslim countries are enough for us. People wanted to fix the whole problem on the spot. And we've been going through one calamity after the other. We've become weaker over time. So why don't we learn from that? Because, okay, make it guarantees that we will lose the 100 years to come. Imagine yourself that you lose hope in them. But build a long-term strategy of 50 years from now. Consider it to be dreaming. That we want the Muslims to be in such and such position. For example, let's say in terms of Islam, knowledge of Islam, okay? We want one at least of every 5 people to memorize the whole Quran, understand it with tafsir, and become a scholar, a person who is acquainted with the Islamic history, who knows the Seerah of the Prophet ﷺ, and we develop them in terms of skills of leadership, management, in terms of planning. We manage all of this, and we make these the religious people in our ummah. In 50 years, can't we do that? Obviously we can do it. It's much easier than we think about. But it's just about having a clear vision and having the dedication to do it. And it's much easier than many of the things, the stupid things, sorry for that word, that we do today. And that's one aspect. Let's say, for example, we want 50% of what we have in the markets in 50 years to be manufactured locally. At least 50%. The best thing would be far above that. Let's say we're talking about cars, factories, food, home appliances, whatever it is. That at least 50-60% of them are homemade. And for example, say education. We want in 50 years our schools to be ideal in every respect, in every aspect. In terms of science, in terms of technology, we have the latest advancements in that field. In terms of curriculum, we want to have the best curriculum developers in the world. In terms of students, we want to have the most intelligent students in the world. We can build them right from kindergarten. Right from an early age. And let's say, for example, in terms of constructions, from now on we want to have a special conditions for buildings, for constructions, that we build them really right, so they are safe and secure and they are enduring and longer lasting. And we can develop an economy. Definitely we can do all of this. And let's have a da'wah strategy, for example. Many people think about da'wah strategy today. I want to get, for example, 5 people embrace Islam. I want to get 1,000 people. I want to get 10,000 people embrace Islam at my hand, by means of me. Why don't we develop a massive da'wah strategy that engulfs or that involves with the media, the book industry, publishing industry, that reaches a high level in terms of media as well? That we develop high level, high quality media productions that no one can compete with. And it could be done even financially rewarding. It could work out financially. So we get both sides. We can always do something like that. Why don't we make a plan similar to that, and you will see. What about our younger generation? Why are we so selfish that we don't realize we are, for example, let's say our generation is unable or will not be able to change the state of the ummah totally. Why don't we give that privilege to our children so we pave the way for them? Why don't we build the foundations? Even though they are under the ground, no one will see them. No one will appreciate our effort apart from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Let's do that. Let's not be selfish. Pave the way for our younger generation, our future generations, so that they find the way paved, they find it ready for them, that all what they need to do is to carry on the mission, is to make a few steps forward, and the glory will be for Islam. Change will be there. But no, we're so selfish, we just want to jump right to the top straight away. We fall on our heads and we keep doing the same mistakes, so our future generations will have to start from even below zero. We're not thinking, you see, we're not thinking on long-term strategy. The Prophet ﷺ was not like that. Was not like that. He did not respond in an irresponsible way to the persecution of his companions in Medina. No, he realized he couldn't do anything. He felt so much pain for that, but he focused on changing the underlying patterns, the root causes of that, so this doesn't even happen, and it doesn't need to happen in the future. And within about 13 years, he managed to do that. So it was very drastic, deep change, sweeping change that eliminated all possibilities of that thing happening again. Except for a few cases, obviously there are exceptions. So the Prophet ﷺ, after building these foundations, after Hijrah, the progress of the da'wah and the people embracing Islam was enormous. It's just a matter of building momentum. I hope that one day really there will be some kind of body and organizations in the Muslim world who have deeper visions taken from the life of the Prophet ﷺ to develop something like that. Not necessarily, we don't have to take the fruits ourselves, reap the fruits ourselves. Why not let the fruits be reaped by future generations? But we get the reward from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We should think about something like that. The Prophet ﷺ did not obviously capture, or he did not get hold of Iraq or invade Iraq or natural Syria. The Prophet ﷺ did not go into Egypt. All these lands did not fall within the hands of the Muslims during the life of the Prophet ﷺ, but definitely the Prophet ﷺ paved the way for all of this. He paved the way for all of this success. We don't have to enjoy our success in this world. Why not enjoy it in the hereafter? But make it easy for future generations to build that glory and that wonderful position for the Muslim Ummah. Why don't we help them do that? As I said, sometimes it's a matter of intention. Look, for example, at there are some attempts, by the way, to change the state of the Ummah. For example, there are a couple of TV programs. Some of them, they highlight the differences between Muslim countries and non-Muslim countries, and even among the Muslim countries as well, there are some comparisons, and even some comparisons with Muslims and Muslims today and Muslims in the past. And the focus of these programs is on superficial level. Is on a very superficial level. For example, they take the issue of hygiene, yes, or the issue of organization, which is true. But these are results, these are not causes. So if we start to treat the symptoms and we forget about the main reason or the main cause of disease, we will not be able to cure ourselves. That's the problem. So when you watch these films and read some of these articles and some of these books, actually they don't give you any feeling, any spiritual feeling about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, about Islam, or about your aqeedah, faith, or anything. It's just like any attempt by any other nation to improve the standard of living, the standard of organization, the standard of productivity, the standard of hygiene, the superficial symptoms of a society. But in Islam, these things are supposed to be achieved as a result of having the correct faith in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the correct outlook on life, and the correct desire to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Yes, other nations have so many wonderful achievements, but what are they done for? They're done for the sake of the dunya. So we shouldn't have the same approach. We can arrive at similar results or even better results, because our ummah was a great example in this regard. You know, when the Crusaders came to the Muslim lands, they learned so much from the Muslims. They saw a different standard of life that they never even dreamt of in Europe. They saw the markets, they saw the products, they saw the hygiene, they saw the streets, they saw the buildings, they saw the industry, they saw the technology, they saw even the social life was so wonderful. So they took elements of these and imported them to Europe to change. So in Islam we have these elements, but we have them on a deeper level, and we should start with the essence, with the roots, and then we will get these symptoms, or these good symptoms. But we shouldn't follow the same example of the kuffar. We just want these symptoms for the sake of the symptoms. No. We have them on a deeper level. They are much more intrinsic. Because with the non-Muslims, if these beauties become impractical to them, they do away with them. This is why in many areas in the West, you will get at some areas they're so filthy and dirty and despicable in a way that's beyond description. So you see, in Islam, hygiene is part of our deen. We do it for Allah, even if sometimes we feel it could be impractical for us. That's just a small example. Okay, we have some other things, inshallah, that we will share with you. So you're invited to stay with us after this short break.
Allah knows what's best for us, so why should we complain?
إذا دكت الأرض دكا.
Do you want to learn how to recite the Quran? Do you want to read Islamic books in Arabic? You may enroll in a small group.
العسل من السوق اشترى. نعم اشترى.
A private lesson.
من مثلها في فضلها.
من مثلها في فضلها.
Or at your own pace to fit your schedule.
هل أنت طالب في المعهد؟
Courses for sisters with female instructors. We're bringing you the latest software technology, professional instructors, and a state-of-the-art classroom to the comfort of your home. Enroll now in Huda Academy. Huda Academy, your gateway to authentic Islamic knowledge.
Allah knows what's best for us, so why should we complain?
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back to Inspirations. And I hope that one day we will see, and if we don't see, our future generations will see this ummah having the glory and the advancement and the real format, or the real form and implementation and manifestation of Islam in its faith, in its creed and articles of faith and all its practices, because that's the peak of human life. That's the beauty of human life. Anything else would not really be of benefit to humanity, even if it seems to be so in the long run. I have a couple of messages to people in the field of education. You know, try to, if the whole system of education is corrupt in the Muslim land, in your country, try to be that candle that lights the rest of the candles around it. Try to be a special example. Try to be different, because excellence and great reward from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is actually obtained in the most difficult times, when it's unlikely to happen. The Prophet ﷺ once said that 1 dirham could be better than 100,000 dirham. How could $1 or £1 be better than 100,000 pounds, both paid for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? The companions asked the Prophet ﷺ this question, and he said to them that if a person has £2 or 2 dirhams, he pays one of them for the sake of Allah, he has paid half of his wealth for the sake of Allah. But if a person is so rich, when he pays 100,000 pounds, it's just like he took a little money from his pocket, a little change, and he gave it in charity. So there's a huge difference. So a person pays £1 could be better than a person, or receives greater reward in the sight of Allah than a person who pays 100,000. So today, when it's difficult now to be good, to be a good teacher, to be a good Muslim, when it's more difficult, now you will get much reward. And this is what the Prophet ﷺ said, when he said later on there will be people from my ummah who receive the reward of 50 people. They said, "Oh Messenger of Allah, 50 people of us, from among us or among them?" He said, "No, 50 people from among the companions, from among you." Why? Because it's most difficult to practice Islam. So when it's most difficult for you to be a good teacher, be a good teacher. That's the best time to be a good teacher, because things will be easy for you. Reward from Allah, immense reward, would be easy for you to get once you make that challenge. and you succeed in it. Don't forget that these children are the future of the Muslim Ummah. So how do you treat them? How do you teach them? Do all of this for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Another thing as well, and the best thing would be if you can develop a longer term strategy for yourself, for your children, to build them become better Muslims, develop their skills. And many times, unfortunately, what happens, there's an impression with people when it comes to practicing, when they talk about practicing individuals, they always think about them as they lack skills that help them in this world. There's a reason behind this, because many times when we look after the welfare of our children or after their Islamic education, we forget to teach them in matters or equip them in matters that are necessary to survive in this world, to maintain even their faith and to spread their da'wah. So here's a call to practicing parents who are concerned about their children. Teach your children skills of leadership, skills of management, skills of public relations. Teach them other skills that are necessary and helpful in this world, so they can really carry their da'wah and make a difference. And there's a message here I would like to give to the rich Muslims. In the Muslim world we have so many rich people. Some of them are making hotels for cats, for kitten, for homeless cats. Some people are making a hostel in some Western countries for lost and homeless dogs. And there are Muslims who are dying of starvation, who don't have food to eat. What about the millions of Muslims who are unemployed and can't find jobs? Why do we always think about charity as it has to be feeding a person some food? Why don't we invest our money? The rich people, why don't they invest their money to build projects and get the Muslims, the unemployed Muslims, to work? So you don't have to feed them, they feed themselves. And we strengthen our ummah, we build productive kind of industry. We change the state of the ummah instead of keep importing things from everywhere. And we are unable to manufacture. Look at the clothes we wear. Most of the clothes we wear is imported from other countries. It's amazing. It's just amazing. We're so helpless. So these are things that we have to consider on the long term. On the long term as Muslims, and I would like to close with the issue of Muslim media. That's very important. Because today it's the TV, most of the time, the media generally speaking, and the internet, that is really manufacturing people's minds, people's opinions, people's outlook on life. So we should not ignore that area. I've seen it with Muslim TV channels. Most of them are struggling financially. How many among the Muslim channels have reached the point of bankruptcy and being even stopped? And they have to start begging people for money. Rich Muslims, why do you let this thing happen? And other people are spending billions on entertainment. We Muslims have to develop our media production, so we give it some kind of variety. We transfer it, or we push it to a higher level. Okay, we understand. The Prophet ﷺ, when he spoke to, for example, after the people became Muslims, after the conquest of Mecca, when many people flooded into Islam, after the Battle of Hunayn, the Prophet ﷺ gave these spoils of war to the new Muslims. Why? Because he knows their iman is still weak. And these people, if they are given matters of this world, they will be more inclined to Islam. They'll start to love Islam and their iman will grow. Some people their iman only grows that way. So we have to understand this. There are many people in the world who won't listen to us unless we present to them a certain level of production, certain quality. Why don't we do that? We don't lack, wallahi, we don't lack the money, we don't lack the financial resources. But it's the Muslims are not feeling that responsibility upon themselves. They're not feeling that responsibility. And even the Muslim channels, when you look at them today, most of the programs are one-man show, very direct preaching, which is not, it takes a lot of patience for people to watch that. Most people are not happy with that. They might watch you for 1 or 2 hours, but they won't keep doing the same. So Islamic media has to be presented in a better way. We have to reach high levels, because we can build general opinion. We can manufacture general opinion, not only within Muslims, but even within non-Muslims. So we can start to build Build something for the future. Why don't we develop the habits of our children? And here I come back to the issue of children. Many of us, we are not really preparing a generation that will be able to hold Islam. Many people let their children, they let somebody else, bring their children up, which are definitely the TV and the cartoons. And check the cartoons that your kids watch. I'm telling you, most of the cartoons on TV, and that's a study, 30% of what it's actually, there are three main elements that you find them in almost every cartoon. Sex, sexual life, sexual issues, violence, and theft. These are the three main elements that you'll find in most of the cartoons. So what do you think your child is going to learn? You're probably getting some good time, keeping your child busy watching TV. But all of these are made according to, do you think people don't have a plan behind this? And as I said, if you don't have a plan, somebody else has a plan for you. That's the problem. So if you don't take the initiative, you take lead of your life, somebody else is leading you. So if you don't develop a plan for your kids, that once they reach the age of 20, what kind of person you want them to be. And don't make it wishful thinking, and don't be so selfish that you want your child to be this or that. Study your child. What are their inclinations? What are their hobbies? What are the gifts that Allah has given them? What are they good at? What do they prefer to be? And try to help them, channel them, direct them to what is beneficial and suitable for them, so they can be real strong Muslims who understand, who shoulder the responsibility of this ummah, who feel the responsibility on their shoulders, and who are powerful and equipped and have the tools, who can make a difference in this ummah. Help them be great people. If we can't, let's make our children do it. Now, there are many other things to say. Some of the things I said were are built on some things you sent to us. May Allah reward you for your contribution. Inshallah, from next week we'll carry on with the Seerah of the Prophet ﷺ. And as I said, please, once you listen to the Seerah, learn from it. Try to see it as an example for you to follow and benefit from, so we can deal better with this world in which we live today. Until we meet next time, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Allah knows what's best for us, so why should we complain? We always want the sunshine, but He knows there must be rain. We always want the laughter and the merriment of cheer, but our hearts will lose their tenderness if we never shed a tear. So whenever we feel that everything's going wrong, it is just Allah's way to make our spirits strong.
Huda TV strives to bring you, our viewers, the best in Islamic programming.